So real quick, I was nerding out with my moms, and I alluded to this in my Fantastic Four video, which hopefully I'll put that up, along with this one. My mom basically asked me because I've been an anime and manga fan, really more anime, since I was a kid. When I tell people I literally came out the womb borderline watching like Pokemon, literally that was probably the first anime I ever watched like as a baby to my knowledge was Pokemon. To the point where my mom knew as a baby if when I was crying or kind of just sitting there on the couch and chilling, she would do like Pikachu, like she would kind of mimic Pikachu's, like voice or whatever to me, and it would make me laugh. So when I tell people I basically came out the womb watching anime, I mean that. With that said, and growing up with it, and now it's mainstream. Now all of a sudden everyone's an anime fan, which is cool. I'm glad a lot of y'all finally get into some cool stuff. It just took y'all a while. Um, my mom wanted to know, like, what about Eastern media, primarily anime, is so interesting to folks to the point that it's blown up here and it's maintaining it. To the point where allegedly, if this Trump banning anime in the States is real, it's like you're gonna have a problem from the citizens on your hands because literally, apparently, literally half of America watches anime of some kind. So that's a large demographic you're gonna piss off. But that's neither here nor there. As far as why anime is as popular as it is and the overall kind of like geekdom mindset that my mom brought up, I couldn't even break down a few reasons because there's a long list of reasons. But I think I'm gonna do my best to shorten it to three main reasons that makes anime so interesting to people like me, which influences the type of anime that I like to watch, what I pay attention to, whether I'm into some deep thinking stuff, some kind of philosophical stuff, or if I just want to see guys get punched in the face and blasted through an ungodly amount of like mountains and buildings and stuff from a flick of a finger, you know? If I had to go with my first reason as to why anime has blown up and Eastern media in general has blown up to the point like Americans, especially black folks, push it the way we do, I would say for one, it makes intellectualism okay, especially in what people keep referring to as the age of anti intellectualism, which to me isn't necessarily something new. At least, again, from the perspective of black folks, that's not necessarily anything new. They're very much, if anything, that's another reason that kind of like layers over it. A lot of nerds, geeks, whatever, who are into anime were also very much like bookworms and read a lot or they knew a lot about stuff. And, growing up, kids in elementary and middle school didn't like it. Even high school, I'm willing to say. And, you got bullied for that. So anti-intellectualism to me has always been around. It looks different now, especially because we're not the kids in grade school no more. So maybe that's why it looks different. But it's not new. The age of anti-intellectualism, as people keep saying, has always been around. And I think anime and Eastern media in general that people take to, myself included, we love the way that anime and manga frames how being super smart, especially in situations revolving around combat, can be so freaking cool. One of my favorite scenes between both Full Metal Alchemist and Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood is the fight between Edward Elric and Greed. And in both cases, Edward uses his understanding of chemistry to win that fight, or at least to bring it to a stalemate. In the OG Full Metal Alchemist, he wins that fight and straight up unalives Greed. While in Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, he deals a serious blow to Greed, but he was already so beaten up that he probably wasn't going to win that fight anyway. Luckily, his teacher shows up and kind of takes things from there and derails it. And Greed, he technically bites the dust, but then he comes back. That's a whole different comparison. Who knows? Maybe I'll make that as a comparison between Full Metal Alchemist and Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood in a similar vein that I did with DBZ and DBZ Kai. Let me know if that's something that I should look into. That's just one example where, and personally, I think that scene, at least that little monologue from Edward to Greed, I think the OG Full Metal Alchemist does it a little bit better. In Brotherhood, when he comes to that conclusion and realizes that he can manipulate the carbon in Greed's body to deal a serious blow and to potentially win the fight, he kind of speeds through the understanding and the logic of it. He doesn't have that same level of like kind of suspense which can feel like it's dragging, but also feels very fitting because the fight between Edward and Greed happened in two different places between the two anime. So in the setting of the original Full Metal Alchemist anime, they're in a darker building. It's an abandoned mansion, middle of the night, moonlit. You can't really see anything. And it's just the two of them and nobody else. And I think that's why the delivery of the carbon thing, there's only one element that serves to, harden or increase the body's resistance to abrasion, and that's carbon. It helps you understand a little bit about a lot. I guarantee you there's some nerds out here who know a little bit about chemistry, a little bit about physics, probably even picked up martial arts, 1, 2, 3, Lord knows how many, and then some, purely because anime. I guarantee you. Anime is very intellectually driven. And that's not to say American media is not intellectually driven. It's just not our main thing. The more mainstream anime and A-list anime at that, again, they just push intellectualism like a mug. Strategy, there's a reason why Aizen is arguably the most broken villain throughout all of anime. Because there is almost, I don't think there's been any other character, villain or otherwise, that we know so little about that has the entire anime community in a chokehold, borderline from front to back. We don't know much about this guy. We don't know, we still don't know if he even has a Bankai, which we can assume he does, but based on the story of Bleach, who's to say that the Bankai that he demonstrated to become a captain for their examination was even the real one? He probably hypnotized them to see something that he either doesn't have, because his Shikai ability is already that broken, and if he does have a Bankai, he never feels the need to use it. He would much rather use the Hogyoku or his raw spiritual pressure over using his Zanpakuto. He's kind of like the Bleach version of Darth Sidious in that regard. Darth Sidious, he hates using lightsabers and he doesn't care for people using lightsabers. He prefers to rely exclusively on the dark side of the Force, which is why anytime you see him in live media, with the exception of his battle between him and Yoda and Sidious and Mace Windu, aside from that, I don't think you really ever see him use a lightsaber. And the number one thing that he always does is strike people with Force lightning and, do away with them. That's the main thing that he tends to do. Aizen is kind of the same way. So intellectualism, strategy, just that whole type of thing, it not only pushes it, but it frames it in ways that are so freaking cool. It's ridiculous. Another reason, and let me be clear, I'm not going to include fan service on this list. It's low-hanging fruit, but also it's not always good. Like, Bleach fan service is good. Fire Force fan service is freaking annoying. I believe that's Tamaki. It's either Tamaki or Maki. I don't know why they gave two girls with practically the same name in the same company in the same anime. I don't know why they did that. But I believe it's Tamaki. That lecture lore, she called. I don't like it. It's so annoying. Yeah. So fan service is low hanging fruit, but also it's not always great. So that's a freebie. I'll give you that one. So we have intellectualism. Another thing is philosophical. Manga and anime can get extremely philosophical. I can't tell you how many different anime, like in their intros or somewhere in their story, include some version of, for example, the Tree of Life. Like somehow, some way, religion, spirituality plays into the plot, being better people, perspective on good and evil, which you can find in comic books as well. You can find that in American media as well. But, freaking Neon Genesis Evangelion, Black Clover, off the top of my head, because of the Tree of Qliphoth. I don't think it's in Naruto or anything else. I'm sure there are plenty of other manga or anime IPs that include some version of the Tree of Life. The fact that Neon Genesis, their monsters, the main, things that they fight against in that show that are evil, they call them angels, who fire energy rockets or energy balls that when they land, they pop up into a skyscraper height cross. It literally turns into a cross. There's always some religious, spiritual, philosophical concept tied to anime. And again, you can find this in different forms of media, but anime just does it in a way that is so cool. Hence, at least as of right now, my favorite anime character of all time, Roronoa Zoro. One of my favorite scenes with Zoro is when the 2 year time skip basically gets ready to happen, and all the Straw Hats are separated, and Zoro ends up back on Thriller Bark. And when he's there, he's trying to request Mihawk to train him so that over the 2 years that they're separated, he can be stronger and do better to protect his crew, including Luffy, who's not only his captain, but he considers his genuine best friend. And he's disappointed in his ability up to that point. Mihawk, being the number one swordsman in the world, still at this point in time in the manga as well as the anime, which is the position that Zoro intends to usurp from him, Hawkeye's like, why would I help you when I'm basically your op? You know, like, you're gonna try to come after me at some point. And Zoro doesn't lie. He's like, yeah, that's gonna happen. And I'm going to fulfill that dream, because it's not only my dream, it's a dream of a close friend of mine that I lost years ago. But understand that I don't have time for that right now. I have something else to tend to. And in order to do that, you, at least for the time being, are not my enemy. I have something else to handle. A lot of people in the real world, in my opinion, do not understand when it comes to like rivalries and enemies. A lot of people, in my opinion, don't understand two things. One, you cannot claim that someone does not bother you, is not an enemy, is not a rival, or something like that, if you don't respect them. If you can respect your rivals and your enemies. If you think that someone's your enemy or your rival because you lack respect for them, in my humble opinion, that's not how that works. You literally have to acknowledge that person for them to be a consistent op, or whatever you want to call them. There's a level of respect to that. And Zoro acknowledges that while you are a target, I respect your ability. Me coming at you and saying I will take your spot is not a lack of respect. If anything, and this is where I think, even if you want to bring guys versus girls logic into it, this is something that I think women have a hard time understanding. Men can look each other in the face and say, I'm coming after your spot, so don't get comfortable. And we will smile at each other and dap you up and be like, hey, I can't wait to see you. And girls would be like, he just disrespected you. No, if anything, that is actually a high form of respect. If he was to walk into a space, not acknowledge me, not look at me, not shake my hand, not speak to me, then that person does not respect me. This man came to me and said, I recognize you. I recognize your position. I recognize what you do. Don't get comfortable, though. I'm going to bust my butt to make sure I take your spot. So get ready to see me months from now, years from now. You're going to see me. And that's where it's like, okay, let's see. I can't wait. Let's see what happens. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to keep an eye on you. And that's where you get even to the same vein of like the Kendrick Control verse that shook up the rap game years ago, back when I was in high school. I think that's well over 10 years ago now, if not for sure, well over 10 years. And people were like, even Big Crit addressed it in, I believe, his Catalactica album, where he was like, people keep talking to me about this Kendrick diss verse that he didn't even really diss me on. Yeah, he didn't diss you. He's acknowledging that you are someone that's worth paying attention to. And if he wants to actually be the best, you are someone he's going to have to confront. You're someone I'm going to have to confront if I genuinely want to be the best at what I am doing. That is actually a very high level of respect. And that's something that Zoro embodies, in my opinion, very well from that moment. Acknowledging that while you are a long-term enemy or goal, I also have the ability to prioritize that is not what I'm on right now. To the point where Mihawk even says, well, why don't you go find the number 2 swordsman in the world? You know, that's still a great option. And Zoro's like, why would I go for number 2 when number 1 is right here in front of me? Those are the type of things. Even another quote that Zoro said, something about when the world pushes you, you got to push back. Very simple, but there are plenty like different quotes and moments in anime that either the concept and the mentality behind it is unique, or the way that they illustrate it and frame it is very unique. In either case, I think that is what helps manga and anime stand out. People can take stuff from that and truly apply it to their life, as well as it being just a pure epic moment that's cool to watch, you know? One last Zoro moment I'll bring up would be when he finally won over King, which was basically a one-sided fight until he was able to use Enma properly. And once he defeated King, he flashbacks to when King threatened to send the entirety of the Straw Hat crew, you know, to the depths, to the furnace, lack of a better word. And that's where we get, I guess, Zoro's transformation, if you want to call it that, of King of Hell. He's King of Hell Zoro now. If you plan, or your mindset is, we're going to send you to hell, that I will become the King of Hell just to come back and take you out. He's one of those characters that embodies endless determination. There's always a way to do something. He's steadfast on his goal, but he doesn't lack priority. He may lack direction. He gets lost all the time, but he doesn't lack priority. Those are some of the things that lead to anime and manga characters being like actual role models to people, to the point where people try to actually emulate them. So we have intellectualism, we have like philosophy, essentially, and we're not going to bring in fan service. So if I had to pick one more reason that has led to Eastern media, anime in particular, being like as explosive in the West as it is, and especially again for Black folks, I think we have always been the main pushers of it. I would say attention to detail is crazy with anime. It's one of the things that leads to anime like One Piece being as great, but also as annoying as it is, because of how so much happens in such a little amount of time. American media is more episodic. It pretty much exclusively is. Even when it comes to Avatar: The Last Airbender and Teen Titans, like I mentioned before, those usually don't, you don't go through 10 different episodes, but technically in the universe of the show, only 5 minutes has transpired, and you've just been shuffling between different people's perspectives of the same thing. That's not something that happens in American media a lot. But in Eastern media, especially One Piece, the raid on Onigashima. I was hesitating between Shiganshima with Attack on Titan and Onigashima. When One Piece and the rest of the Resistance attacked Onigashima, that whole war and everything, them moving, that's just a One Piece formula. They go into a place, they all end up splintering and going other places, and a bunch of battles kick off. They're all in different places having the same time, and freaking 15, 20 plus episodes pass. And in the universe, only maybe a few minutes has passed. And it's like, goodness gracious, especially if they're like under a time limit where like something might explode or a building will collapse or something will go wrong. And you have all this that has happened. And in the real world, months of content has been put out, if not years. But in the universe, barely a few minutes has passed. It's something that can be so great when not abused in the way that One Piece especially has abused it, and therefore it can be very enlightening. Even when it comes to like the background of different characters, the origins, or some of the key moments that has led to their development, it can lead to a hyped up moment like a transformation or some increase in power, all that stuff. It can lead to all that, and that's where attention to detail, as far as the story, that kicks anime into overdrive. Another thing, especially when it comes to 90s anime, and I'm going to die on this, 90s anime it has the best animation style of any era of anime. I don't care what it says, what anyone says. Modern anime characters, in my opinion, are not unique looking. It's part of the reason I have a hard time remembering anime character names that are like newer, part of the new gen, the dark trio or the light trio of anime. It's part of the reason I have a hard time remembering those characters' names. One, because I think I'm just reaching that point where I've consumed so much content between like music and all this other stuff. It's like you reach a point where you no longer play new music or pay it no mind because you've consumed so much stuff over your lifetime. I think I'm just reaching that point. But also, they don't stick out. They just don't stick out. Design-wise, a whole lot of them don't stick out. So it takes little effort for me to remember. As basic as he can look, sometimes Yusuke Urameshi to me sticks out. That can be due to his clothes, the fact that anime is better at providing more dynamic appearances for their characters. Like, if you were to look at Disney Channel, for example, the only cartoon that I know for a fact where the character had a different outfit consistently was Kim Possible. They actually made an extra effort to do that. Manga, anime doesn't always do that, but they still put more of an effort into it. Teen Titans, the OG 2000s Teen Titans, they never changed their appearance. As far as I can remember, they never changed their appearance. One Piece, they change their appearance based on their location. So they'll hold on to an appearance for some time, but it's still dynamic. They just, the frequency is different. when it comes to the art style and through the art style, the attention to detail, for example, 90s Dragon Ball Z art style versus Dragon Ball Super, the freaking shift from Pokemon XYZ to Pokemon Sun and Moon, God forbid, that was terrible. Preferably, the earlier you go back, you'll see the age on certain anime, but you can see the attention to detail, especially in the hair, eyes, especially. You can see it. Now, animation styles these days tend to be more simplified and dumbed down, but they also give more room for emotional expression. And when they speak, their lips can sync better to the dialogue. I guess that's something that is better with more modern anime styles, but it also looks so simple at the same time that's just so weird, childlike even. So, in modern days, that could be a mixed bag. But I think in general, between the story, really, I meant the art styles, but between art styles, storylines, and their direction with it and stuff, the attention to detail with anime is out of this world, and that can go into the strategy piece. That can go to the strategy piece, whether it's how much time has passed, you quietly injected your opponent with some type of poison, and they never felt it. Karama, and you thought you were going to lose, you end up winning, just like in Dark Tournament with Karama, that whole thing. It's so great. I think those are three of the biggest reasons. Anime and manga, their attention to detail, both artistically and plot wise, the strategy that and stuff that can be used, or philosophy that is included in these IPs that makes people better people to the point they actually emulate these characters. These are some actual role models. And strategy, thinking X amount of steps ahead, all that stuff. I would say those are some of the biggest reasons that has allowed anime and manga to just take over the West. And I don't think it's going to go anywhere, especially with black folks. I think black folks rep anime, fandom the loudest, even back when we were getting bullied for it on a regular basis. And there are still some folks who still look at it like weird. Like, if you're into certain stuff, comics, whatever, there's always going to be haters. It is what it is. But yeah, I think those are my top three reasons. Strategy, attention to detail in multiple ways, and philosophy, which can help personal development. I think those are some of the three biggest reasons, and my three biggest reasons for why Eastern media has just taken over, personally. So I'll go and leave that video off here, guys. Go ahead and give me your thoughts in comments below. What do you think that has allowed Western or Eastern media to blow up in the West to the point we are maintaining it? We love it. We want it to stay, at least for right now. What are your thoughts on it? Go and leave me your feedback and everything in the comment section below. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Later.